Good morning, and happy Tuesday. It is a cold and blistery Tuesday here in the great state of Michigan. Jonathan Turner alongside Mr. Nathan Wangler, and it is Inside the Game live on the National Soccer Network on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Roku. We're everywhere.
Pretty much, yeah. Pretty much anywhere you look, anywhere you got a TV, anywhere you got a laptop, you can find us. And I've actually had to help instruct a couple of people on where to go to find us. And fortunately, that base is growing. And it's a nice thing about the internet age. It's a nice thing about the era that we're in. You know, you can find us on anywhere. And yeah, we are live really anywhere you have an internet connection. So, you know, in one way or another, this is kind of a national or international show if you want to look at it that way, but it's really nice. It's convenient, but I've always recommended people YouTube, Roku TV. Those are the two main places that you can come watch this show every day of the week, Monday through Friday. And a lot of good stuff. Obviously 2 weeks in and looking to complete week number 3.
That we are. And good morning, Mr. Peter Mazuik, coming in from Chicago, just outside of Chicago. And it was actually interesting. Peter's been a part of almost every show we've done. And Peter, if you keep this up for the next 3 days, so today, well, you're already here today, so tomorrow and Thursday, there will be no show on Friday. We've talked about that already. We will send you a free Inside the Game t-shirt. So you just got to keep it for 2 more days. Just 2 more days, man. We'll call you the loyal fan. And loyal fans will get
like the third
a
man.
free
He's
t-shirt.
like the third man of our crew. He's like the third man of our crew. Yeah, he's that voice in the back of our heads the whole show.
That's right. If you're your first time stopping by, hit that subscribe button, like us, and share us with your friends and your family or your enemies. It doesn't really matter to me. We'll take your enemies too.
Reviews too.
But we'll also, you can listen to this on Apple Podcast as well as Spotify. Check us out there. Make sure you rate us. We'll continue to grow this thing as we continue to grow as a platform. And Peter goes sweet. So Peter goes sweet. So cool. So a couple things. Obviously, yesterday we talked about the Lions, and during our show, and if it wasn't during our show, it was directly after our show that they announced Ben Johnson was going to be the head coach of the Chicago Bears. We expected that, to be fair. I think the only reason why he wouldn't go to Chicago, and probably a small off chance, was the fact that he's going right across to a division opponent. And I think that if you're Ben Johnson, I think that you, with as much respect you have for Dan Campbell, you probably don't want to necessarily just travel right over and start playing him twice a year, you know, and a big these are rivalry games. So that might have been, I think, one of, you know, if there's a factor in there, that might have been it, you know. But aside from that, the Jaguars just doesn't seem like a job that I would have taken. You'd have to, that organization just doesn't know up from down, you know, and they've got some really good players, but when you go through coaches like they have in the carousel there, it's, and then I think that there was a Jets was off possibility as well as the Raiders.
Yeah.
When the Raiders were in Oakland, I would have argued that was a better job for someone that wants to just focus on football, because now you're in Las Vegas and now there's so many distractions in Vegas that I can only imagine that would, you know, because that town is full of distractions. So I would imagine that might be a better job for a coach to go, you know, because, and again, I mean, Vegas it's like either it's so hot or it's so warm. It's like, you know,
there's nothing that gives me more trust issues in this life and in this world, Jonathan Turner, than raisins and cookies. And there's also nothing that gives me more trust issues in this life and in this world than coaches in sports. It is a really good, really good quote from Philip Wrigley once upon a time. And it was about baseball, but you can stretch this out that it applies to pretty much any sport. And it was during the time frame, the sport of baseball kind of was the biggest sport in America. So that's why it was the way that it was. But he goes, baseball is too much of a sport to be called a business and too much of a business to be called a sport. And I look at that and I can stretch that across all different sports. Football, especially in the NFL, it's the same story. I mean, the Bears were going to hire him regardless. They wanted to hire him last year, but they ended up going with Eberflus instead. Really wise choice on their end. But Ben Johnson always talked about if he was going to be a
Was that sarcasm, by the way? I couldn't tell if that was sarcasm.
No, it wasn't. No, they were serious.
Okay.
They wanted.
You went really straight faced with the whole thing, so I wasn't sure.
They were considering. They were definitely considering it, but they decided not to. And the thing is, Ben Johnson has said himself the only place he would go to be a head coach in the NFL would be the Chicago Bears. And so the Bears opened up the pocketbook and obviously made it happen. And reading the article, if you ever get a time, and again, we don't have to talk in length about the Lions. I'd love to get in some other stuff today. But if you read the article, all those interviews with different teams, and we knew this because they said it on the TV broadcast, but they all took place during that bye week. And I found it so ironic when you and I said yesterday, well, maybe losing to the Vikings at the end of the season would have been the best thing to happen to this team, because they wouldn't have had the comfort of having a bye week. They would have had to just turn around and get ready for more football. So to say that there weren't distractions there, I don't know if I necessarily buy that, but it's tough for fans because, and those are the people that I feel for the most. You can't buy into what coaches say about loyalty, about how much they love a place, about how much they're not leaving, and this, that. You have to take all of that with a grain of salt, because just fans, I guess, just don't really understand the business side. And they have to say those things because they want to win your affection. They want to win your trust and all those things. But at the end of the day, it's a business, and it is a cutthroat, cold-hearted business at the same exact time. And this was the thing I was the most afraid about, losing that game. Losing that game wasn't just losing one football game in the playoffs. It was losing the best offensive coordinator in football. That in a lot of ways feels like starting over. I realize we have a lot of the same, players and key pieces back. And obviously we got to talk about the quarterback situation, but we just lost the biggest piece of that machine that helped lead us to those games. And it's just because it's a cruel business. The sport of football, the sport of soccer. We could talk about money, big money in the game of soccer at some point, Nathan, on this podcast if we want. But
I don't disagree with anything you just said there. And obviously, Ben Johnson last year made it very clear when he was in the podium and sitting at that podium. He goes, "I am not going to go leave this job and go take on a head coaching job that I'm not there in 2 years. Because I'm not going to do that. I'm not interested in doing that." There are how many coordinators they leave their current coordinating job, go become a head coach, they're fired within 2 years, and they're back being a coordinator again. So Ben Johnson was very clear about that. So I don't. And to be fair, there are a lot of coaches out there that would never make that statement. And that's why I believe that Ben Johnson is probably well more suited to be a head coach than a coordinator, because if you have the ability in your brain to say, because let's be honest, I mean, to go get a head coaching job, coordinators for the most part, depending if you're really good coordinators, they're not making $5-10 million a year. They're making upwards of $1 million, maybe, right? 100. They're not making the same kind of money as head coaches because they don't have the weight on their shoulders. Now, I'm not sure Ben Johnson's salary at Detroit. He's going to clearly get a pay raise. But there are a lot of coaches out there that are coordinators that are like making $500,000 a year. That they go from $500,000 to $4 or $5 million. So they could just take that head coaching job for a couple of years, get a contract in place, and make $10-15 million, and say, okay, I'll go back to being coordinator. So he's not interested in that, and that is the one thing that I've always liked about Ben Johnson, is that he's creative, but he's also very, very, very logical about the way he wants to move forward with another role. And again, we wish him luck. And we're from Michigan, so we're going to talk about some things that happened in Michigan. Whether like last night, Ohio State beat Notre Dame, and while anyone out there, first off, I would never in a million years root for Ohio State. Like ever. That would never happen. I'm sorry. As much as I might hate the next team that they're playing against, I would never root for Ohio State. Didn't happen last night, and it won't happen any other time, okay? But I do take solace in the fact, and they were talking about this morning on CBS or last night on CBS. I don't remember when it was. I just saw a clip of it this morning. Is that does this victory for Ohio State, does it have a little bit of an asterisk next to it? Because they went through the entire season. They beat a lot of really good teams, but the one thing they could not do, beat Michigan. And the fact that Michigan won the national championship last year, this year Ohio State wins it. So, it's kind of...
Hey, they had to go through, in a lot of ways, the gauntlet. And they had to beat Oregon a second time. They had to beat Tennessee. They had to beat Texas. They had to go through a lot of tough teams in order to get there. They had to go to beat Tennessee. And to be frank with you, the SEC is not what it used to be. And I think there's a lot of people in the South that are having some struggles, some real struggles with realizing that this is just not the case, right? Michigan is only getting better. Ohio State is obviously not going anywhere. But there was that element to it. They had to fight to get there. But here's the thing, and I'll agree with you. I just wanted to throw them a bone because congratulations. Even the people that, hated Michigan last year were still reaching out to me and saying, hey, congrats. Must be a great feeling to see this. Obviously, Ohio State hasn't seen one since 2014. But if I'm an Ohio State fan, right, I'm very thankful that my daddy, the NCAA, expanded the playoff field to 12 teams because they wanted the TV ratings and they wanted to include more people and make this a bigger thing, right? Because without daddy making it a 12-team playoff, their other daddy, Michigan, would have knocked them out of the playoffs. Because, Jonathan Turner, there used to be a day where that game had implications on the postseason. If you didn't win that game, you didn't go to the national championship. If you didn't win that game, you didn't go to the playoffs, right? Forget all the historical stuff, right? Forget the battle for Toledo and all those other things between Michigan and Ohio. That game, in a lot of ways, and this is the reason why it is called the game. It's the reason why it's the biggest rivalry game in college football, because historically that game has decided who has gone on to not only be the conference champion, but the national champion on so many different times throughout the two schools' histories. That's why it is so massive. The godfather of Ohio State football said nothing else matters than beating Michigan. You want to know what Urban Meyer said? You can't win a national championship if you don't win your conference. The godfather of your football program and the best coach that has ever come through your football program both said nothing else matters if you don't beat that winged helmet that's right behind me. So congratulations on winning your national championship. You still can't beat Michigan. So it is what it is. Like I said, great group. Honestly, they got everybody back. They assembled the Avengers. That's what Ohio State did, right? And they did it with the intention of obviously going to win a national championship. Because this is a team that's been frustrated the last 3-4 years. They've been on the doorstep. They just couldn't figure out a way to finish. But they finally did. They finally broke through. They won one. Now they're going to keep Ryan Day around, and we're going to come back and spank them again for a 5th straight year next year. So it's going to be fun to watch.
That it will be. Want to remind everybody that Inside the Game has its own merch. All you got to do is head over to nationalsoccernetwork.com and then select any one of the T-shirts, hoodies, long sleeve, cups, mugs. I actually purchased some of this stuff here this past weekend to try it on and get it going. So that'll be here sometime this week. Head out to National Soccer Network. We've got a lot of merch, not just Inside the Game. We've got Soccer versus Everybody. We've got Soccer Nation, our online new membership group that we will really start to announce here in the coming weeks. And Soccer Nation is where you can hang out and have conversations about all things soccer on the National Soccer Network, both on our YouTube channel as well as on Facebook and so much more. So head over to nationalsoccernetwork.com. Get your merch today. And Mr. Wangler, let's dive into our topic here today. And me and you were talking about this kind of before the show. We get into our green room and me and you we conversate. And I think it's important to talk about the fact that we just kind of come on here. We don't really have anything of substance that's prepared. I mean, we've had some topics that we've discussed, but to be fair, about 15 minutes before this show, me and you just kind of hop in, kind of bounce around a couple ideas, and then we go. It's really about it. Is that fair to say?
Sometimes I think we've picked out some subjects beforehand. I think I've done a little bit more thinking than that necessarily, but yeah, for the most part, yes. And not that it's just we're taking a laissez route of going about this, but it is nice to have the flexibility to just kind of come on and talk about different stuff. Right? Not everything has to be pointed because I feel like a lot of what we do in the play by play realm is very pointed. It is very direct. It is very it's our job. It's what we need to do. So it's nice to have this medium to go the opposite direction. But to kind of piggyback off of what you were saying, there's a lot of when we do this show, there are people that obviously understand who we are and what this company is and what we're going for. Obviously, Peter being one of them. Congrats. Welcome back for another EP. Hey, it turns out if you just watch enough of our episodes, you'll actually just get free stuff. So you can go onto our shop and buy it, or you can just watch every episode and, after 3 weeks, we'll give you a t-shirt. So that's how that works. But a lot of people are wondering exactly who we are. And that's kind of the stage that we're in right now, especially going through the transition of where we were, which was Michigan based. It was mostly everything was local, especially in the Detroit area, pictured right behind you. That's kind of where it started. Now we're transitioning onto the national level. So in order to figure out who we are at NSN, they always talk about in interviews, it's always the who, what, when, where, and why. Like those are the most important questions. So the first one in that list, and I know you don't like doing this, but I got to put you on the spot and make you do it. Who are you, Jonathan Turner? And what do you do? What's your story?
Who am I? That's a good
Who
question.
are you?
Well,
I don't even know.
I am me.
Curious.
I am me.
That answers that. Anyways, no, I'm kidding.
And I'm a doer. Sorry. I pick things up and I put them down. So how far do you want to go back? Well, I was born and raised in I was born at Royal Oak Bowman Hospital in Royal Oak, Michigan.
Good.
But yeah, no, I mean, who am I?
That.
Yeah, I was going to say, who am I? It's a great question. I am someone that lives and breathes soccer. I've been that way since the moment I started playing soccer. It's been I always say it's kind of like down at the cellular level in my body. And it doesn't mean that I have to engulf it, every ounce of it every single time I step out into the world, or I got to go be at the pub and watch the Premier League like that. That's not me. Okay. It's just something that's always been in me and around me since I was a kid. And it's the reason why I did not do, didn't go to high school dances. Well, that might not be the only reason. I was kind of more of a weird kid, so maybe that wasn't it. I didn't necessarily.
That was my excuse too.
I wasn't this like bubbly person that I am now back in high school. So that's probably why I didn't go to dances, but I did not do certain things because I was playing soccer, right? I wouldn't go on the trips that everybody else would go on. We'd be at a tournament, right? I would not go to homecoming. I was at a soccer game, right? Or things like that. And I'm going to continue to use that excuse and not the fact that I was weird. But like that to me, that's how it was. The moment I could become a referee, I wanted to. At 13 years old, became a referee. I went through the class back then. It was like an 8-week or 6-week course. You had to go to a class, do it in person. They ran through everything with you, very thorough. And then they sent you off, and you had to go find a local league that you would be a part of. And you'd have a mentor program where I was part of mentoring, and I learned the ways of being a referee. And I just continued to build this love for the game. And when my playing days came to an end, I had something to fall back on. Right? Think about that, right? How many athletes play at the highest level of their sport? And when it's all said and done, they're done. And some on purpose, right? Some do that on purpose because they gave it all they had, and now they want to go and be something else. I've always wanted to be involved in soccer. And my parents, they invested a ton of money in me. Think about the money that you invest in club soccer, right? Thousands and thousands of dollars a year. And they don't forget to remind me of that, by the way. They oftentimes remind me how much money it cost them, and how many condos they could have bought if I didn't play soccer. So, um, but but yeah, I mean, all this investment, and my parents are always goes, well, that was sometimes I might even say it's a waste, and I go, well, but was it? I mean, I know I didn't go off and play college. I had an opportunity. I had some opportunities to play college, and I opted to not. And along the way, when I was in my senior year of high school, there was a moment where I was just like, man, I love playing soccer, but I don't love this aspect of it. And it was the part where it became more like a job for me. I just didn't enjoy the things that I used to enjoy around it. So I exited from it. And when I did that and I focused on the refereeing, I just took the passion that I had for playing in a soccer game, and I took all that passion and put it into refereeing. I was really good at it. Like, I was really good. I was just like in soccer. If you're, as a player, if you're really good, people take notice. And in refereeing, if you're really good, people take notice, and the right people started taking notice of me about, how I would manage a game and how I would interact with players and coaches, and how I would identify a foul, and deal all that. And it led me to being selected to go, State Cup here in Michigan, which was an honor. And then from there, you get selected to go to regionals, right? And regionals is a thing. Being selected for that was unbelievable. I mean, that's an all expense paid trip to wherever the heck regionals is at. And the year I went was in St. Louis, or outside of St. Louis area. But, and just being a part of that. And then now you're being fast tracked, right? You're being fast tracked to go, to the next level, right? And like just like in soccer, there's just different levels of playing. You can play at ODP and national teams and professional. There's different kind of levels in refereeing. And I was being prepped for that. I was being sent to camps to learn more about how to officiate at a high level. I was being groomed, so to speak, to be, the next level referee. And I'll never forget it. I was in Saginaw. Every year we would go to Saginaw and Midland for State Cup. Midland was the girls, Saginaw was the boys. And they paid for your hotel. So they put you in a hotel and you stayed there. And it was the girls tournament. So it was the girls. So it was not spring, fall. I think fall was girls. It is. Anyway, so we went up there to do the girls State Cup, and I was 21. So there wasn't like an issue of me being able to drink. But all the referees get together. We're all in the same hotel. We're all, we're rooming with each other. So we're having a party. I brought my PlayStation or my Xbox. We're playing FIFA in my room. And I might have already told this story on some level, but we're playing Xbox and PlayStation in the room. And then, we're drinking beer. We're just having a good time. Games don't start till tomorrow. We're just and people are coming in. All these referees who are all of age are just walking in. They're grabbing beers. They're just hanging out. I think even our administrators walked in at one point, and we're like grabbing. And sure enough, and I didn't know this at the time. I didn't know until the next morning, because the next morning when I got pulled into a meeting at the field is when things went awry. A kid. A referee who was underage had walked into our room. He had grabbed a beer, drank said beer, and then went down to the head of the referees for that tournament and turned us in. He said he gave me alcohol. I'm sitting there going like, what the? And me and my roommate, who we still have a contact with each other, but me and my roommate were kind of like, we got in trouble because we were the ones hosting the party. So the next morning they're like, you gave alcohol to a minor. I go, I certainly did not give alcohol to any minors. I'm like, I said that did not happen. They go, John, he came in your room and he had a beer, he drank it. And then I go, well, okay. But I didn't take, we didn't have someone at the door checking IDs as they were walking in the door. I go, he came into our room, he took his own beer, and then went down and decided to tell you. I go, I don't know about you, but that certainly sounds quite fishy. I go, was he feeling guilty that is he getting in trouble? No.
Right.
This young man did not get in trouble. Me and my roommate did. We were told to go home. So we had to pack up our stuff and go home. And I was no longer allowed to stay up. And they no longer fast-tracked me. Now, I still had opportunities to referee, and that didn't go away. But I lost my ability to do stake up over that incident. And it was a moment for me because, I could have looked at that and said, hey, I'm going to pack it in, whatever. It just instilled something else in me that just made me realize that you have to just kind of be mindful of the company you keep, and how that can have an impact on you. And
Yep.
that story is so important in my path, in my passion, because had that not happened, had I not gone through that experience and lost something that I was working so hard to accomplish, I don't even know what like life would look like right now for me. I mean, you think about referees who are refereeing at the highest of levels in the World Cup. Like, I was 21 years old. I was an up and coming referee. I had everything that I had all these things going for me, and this one singular moment took it all away. And so that built something into me that I just knew that moving forward, that I just had to use that to humble whatever that was, and use that kind of as a catalyst for me to go do whatever it is I was intended to do. I continued to referee. I used that as a learning experience in anything professional that I was going to do. And, I really kind of refocused everything. And I started to get into some coaching. I met my wife. I got married. I stepped away from refereeing for a bit, and then got into high school coaching. And I'll tell you right now, the high school coaching, as rewarding as it was the most stressful, and I can't really put it into words, right? How stressful it was. If anyone knows me, everyone knows that when I want to do something and I have the passion behind me, I'll do anything. It doesn't matter. I don't look at it as work. I just look at it as, here's a goal. I have to go do it. And good, bad, or indifferent. When I took on the job, when I got interviewed for the job at Birmingham Groves, it kind of came out happenstance. Because of my relationship in refereeing in the state of Michigan, I knew a lot of referees and a lot of people who were in the soccer world. So I'd actually gotten reached out to by another referee whose son happened to go to Groves. And that referee was like, hey, do you know anyone who's looking for a head coaching job at Groves? And I said, yeah, I actually recommended somebody for them and passed that name off to them. They interviewed that job. That person actually, I believe, accepted the job.
Huh.
Okay. And then a few weeks later, I get a phone call from the same person saying, hey, John, that person's not going to do this job. We need to find another coach ASAP. The season starts in like 3 weeks. I go, can I put my name in the hat? Can I do it? I had done some coaching. I had coached some middle school soccer, right out of high school. I had done some things in the personal training world where I still want to kind of stay around the coaching aspect of kind of just in case I had something ever I wanted to do. And he goes, sure. So I created a resume and I sent it in, and they gave me an interview. And I remember I sat there with the athletic director and with this person that was the referee, was also the president of the booster club at the school. So he was, and he knew me. So I knew he was going to fight for me, which was great. And so I go in there and they're like, John, we're interviewing, coaches who have 20 or 30 years of experience. Why should we hire you? And my exact response is that with me, you're going to get someone that's going to be a student of the game, who is going to bring people in around him, who is going to help make him better because they might be better at it than he is. And I go, a coach coming in who's been doing this for 30 years, they're going to come in doing things their way. They aren't going to be open to new things and looking to make changes. They are going to do it the way they've always done it because that's what's gotten them their success. I go, so if you want someone who's also going to be engulfed in this school and make this program, an extension of the school, then I'm your guy.
Mm-hmm.
And they hired me. I beat out a guy who'd been doing it for 20 years at a varsity level. I mean, I should not have gotten that job. I didn't have the X's and O's like a coach like that might have. I wasn't the best training coach, but I knew that if you just gave me that opportunity, I could do it. And we talked about it a little bit yesterday about how I kind of like the pathway of my success at the school. And that wasn't just because of me. I had some really good players that came in, right? I had some really good, I had good coaches that I surrounded myself with. So it wasn't like it was John Turner. Dan Campbell would go up there and say, it's not me. I've got 35 people plus all these players, right? It wasn't me. My job was just to lead a program and to be the guy that was like, at the end of the day, like, this is what we're trying to do. We're going this direction, and I need everybody behind me all thinking the same way, going this way. That was my job. That's how I took it. And and for 5 years, it was great. But I'll tell you, while it was great, the parenting aspect of the game in high school soccer was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
It was terrible. Yeah. The constant questioning your decision making, it didn't matter how proactive I was. It didn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
I still was scrutinized,
right.
and it just sucked. So
how did all that experience lead to the broadcasting world, though? I guess that's what I'm curious about, because obviously that's a long journey. And it's interesting because when you and I talk about this, two very different backgrounds, similar themes, obviously similar in the way the stuff we went through in our journey, especially the failure aspect of it. I mean, hell, I can wax poetic about my first couple of years trying that and failing at it. But how did that translate? Because I agree with a lot of the stuff you said, but how did that translate from where you were, being a ref, being a coach, being a player? I mean, you literally touched every single aspect of the game on the field. How the heck did that transition from that to where you are broadcasting and directing the broadcasting of games?
I think it was important to kind of share that kind of history, because all that stuff kind of like it fits, it like kind of shows kind of how this all kind of shaped up, right? So in 2018, in my second to last season before stepping away and resigning from Groves, an assistant coach had come in who just created a whole new energy for our program. It was a fantastic hire, and during his time with us at Groves, our relationship was kind of an up and down type thing. We didn't see eye to eye on things, and at times we butted heads, and sometimes, well, not sometimes, he had a hard time keeping those frustrations from the players. Okay, and undermining me started to happen. And ultimately, in my final season there, it was so bad that I had to literally say, I'm going to walk away, and it's time. So that this whole thing kind of, while he was a great asset, there were so many things that kind of made it hard for us to work together, that I said, I'm done, I'm out, and he didn't continue on there. He also was out. It wasn't like he stepped into my role or anything like that. But anyways, I made this decision to walk away, and a lesser person would have been like, hey guy, I don't want anything to do with you anymore. But that wasn't it. I was like, hey dude, we just didn't work this thing out. I still think you're a pretty cool dude. Let's still be friends, and we still end up being friends. I mean, we're not friends anymore, and that's a whole other level. But at that time, we still stayed in contact. And I was doing something with my new company at the time, and I was doing some podcasting. I was really trying some things out.
That was MSN.
But that was not MSN. We called it the Open Road Network. I had this idea of creating a podcasting network where podcasters could all come together, and they could basically have their own shows, but in one place. So that way the whole thing could grow and everyone could be a part of it. That was my thought process. So I created this platform, and while I was doing that, and the frustration of seeing only 25 views on a podcast every single time we did it was, and I don't know where I get a phone call from this guy, and he's like, hey man, I run a club, and we want to do a live broadcast. Come on out and try it. And I go, dude, I've never done that before. He's like, no, I think you'd be really good at it. Give it a shot. That was May 21st, 2021. 2020. Maybe it was 2021. I think it was either 21 or 20. It was right after COVID. So I said, oh, okay. I took my gear, went out and did it, and I saw doing it on my platform. We did it on the Open Road Network. That one game had like 700 views after like 2 days. I go, okay. We got to do more of that. We got to do more of that. We got to do more of that. We can do more of that. Here. I mean, like, I'm like, Sarah, here I'm struggling to get 25, and people are talking about really good things, and it just wasn't working. But 700 views from a soccer game, and so I think it was like May 21st, 2020, I think, but again, I could be wrong. And I started doing that for that entire summer. So that club, I went and did like almost any game I could. I went out and did, and I figured out new ways to do it. It was test and fail, test and fail, test and fail, right? Succeed, test and fail. We had constant problems. But the views, 500, 700, 500, 700, all my platform, this is great. I go, this is fantastic. And I used that summer kind of as a test scenario, just doing it. I didn't charge anybody anything, just went and did it. And that led to an introduction into my partnership group. And because they love what we were doing, and they're like, what can we do to help you? And I told them I needed in order to do this. And, they've been with me every step of the way. I meet with them a couple times a week. I talk to one of my main partners every single day, and we have great conversations about how to take this thing to the next level. And they've been extremely supportive. I have a great partnership group, but it led, and this is why I made that statement about like the refereeing side of things. I could have let that thing be a defining moment and said, screw soccer, I'm out. I could have used that. I could have used the thing that happened at Groves between me and this coach to say, I don't want anything to do with this guy anymore. Like what he was doing to me behind the scenes, to the players within my organization, what that was doing to the culture and the foundation that I had built before he even walked in the door. I could let that define me, but I didn't. I let it go, and I didn't allow it to really put up a roadblock. I kept that door open, and to be fair, that door is still open for this gentleman. But just over he just again kind of gets in his own way. Walls go up, but if it weren't for that, we wouldn't be here right now.
So you transition. Obviously, you say the Open Road Network. Is that what it was called?
Yeah, okay. So what I did was in the spring of 2020. Again, I apologize for the time, but it was the Open Road Network. I was doing all these games, and then I transitioned it into the Michigan Soccer Network. I just changed the name, and that was in sometime in, like I said, the spring of 2021. Maybe it might have been 2022.
Yeah. So at that point, not to interrupt you, but at that point, when you switch the name of it, now the focus kind of becomes becoming that epicenter that can call high school games across the state of Michigan. Was high school the focus, or what was the focus at first? Just finding leagues?
Yeah, the focus was we didn't start with high school. High school was is an interesting thing. In year one, we didn't do any high school games. We were not allowed to. We had to be, in order to do high school in Michigan, you have to be considered a local media outlet, and there's a process with the MHSA that we had to do. At the time, I wasn't aware of all the ins and outs of that relationship, so I took some time before entering into that world to make sure I knew what I was going to be doing, what we were going to be doing. We spent most of our time in the amateur leagues. The UPSL, at that time, the Midwest Premier League was not a thing here in Michigan, but UWS, United Women's Soccer, and any real amateur league. So
obviously now that you've transitioned, and we're doing a lot more of that stuff, and people know that we broadcast soccer games. People know that we have a show. People know that we do this. But it's interesting because you and I, obviously, we talk about sales calls and what to tell companies and stuff like that. The vision has changed now, going from a Michigan-based company to when you talk about a national-based company. So what is the vision in your mind? If you think about this company, because we've gone back, right? That was my first thing. I wanted to go back and talk about what led to where we are now. But now that you know that we cover live games, we rebroadcast soccer games, everything youth through professionals all the way across the country. Obviously, we have this show. This is the first show on this platform. We will probably graduate and have more. We do a lot of it from a remote studio. We're obviously in the midst of building essentially one place where we will be able to do these games from across the country, 5 different pods. All that stuff is good. What is the vision now for NSN? Right, we talk about these sales calls, and just tell me what your company is. It just in as brief of terms that you can. What is the National Soccer Network? And more importantly, what kind of people are you looking for?
Yeah, so the National Soccer Network is where soccer lives, it breathes, and it thrives. That's what the National Soccer Network is. It's something that we now have on our website. I think it's a great way of explaining what we do. You know, if you think about other platforms, and I say other platforms, let's just argue for a second. Let's look at all sport networks, and that's most of what this country is made up of, right? If you think about, your major news organizations or sports news organizations, right? They tend to cover all sports, right? They're not a singular sport. So they might have a division of soccer, and that might be a thing within their organization, but they're not all going towards the same thing. And here at the National Soccer Network, everything is geared towards soccer. Everybody that works for us is all moving in the soccer direction, right? Even if you take a Golazo, for example, and Golazo is a great platform for soccer in this country. CBS created it. It's a good platform, but it's part of CBS. And Golazo is a component of that. And if Golazo does not do well, it is gone because CBS will cut it out. It's gone. See you later. Right. So It's all based on ratings and based on how things, popularity and all that kind of stuff. And so, that's the reality. Everything about what we're doing is all about soccer. And while a lot of your organizations only, cover college and professional, we cover everything. So from the youth game, like today, we've got a U15 boys game at 11 o'clock in Mesa, Arizona, right? That would never make its way to ESPN. That would never make its way to Golazo. That would never make its way to, MLS, TV, right? So you can come on to our programming at any given time and watch a youth game all the way up to professional level soccer in our country. And now, is it the highest of professional? No. But to be fair, you can watch professional soccer anywhere now. So the ones you can't watch, we provide to you.
Right.
And we do it in an easy way. I'm a firm believer in accessibility. So if you're looking to go find an app for the National Soccer Network, we don't have one right now. And will we have one down the road? Yeah, probably, as we get a bigger base and everyone. But the biggest thing that I've learned in all of this is that, and please don't take this the wrong way to my viewers. I don't want this to come off as being disingenuous, or I love you all, but none of you know anything. You don't know how to find stuff. If I put it someplace that you don't know how to find easily, you're never going to find it. So
right in front of them.
What do I do? I make it easy. YouTube's already on your phone. We'll use YouTube. Roku is already on over 100 million homes in this country. So we'll just put it on your TV. So we'll keep it easy, right? And I don't want to sound disingenuous because I love our viewer, but I mean, I can't tell you how many times I get emails saying, "Where's the game?" It's on YouTube. It's on. Send me the link. I go, you don't even need the link. You can just go to YouTube and just type in your team's name. It'll be right there. Right. So we try to make things as easy and as accessible as we possibly can. And that is our platform in a nutshell. I didn't talk about the news side of it, but yeah.
Well, and the accessibility part of it is always the funniest part, because, and I even personally have had to help show people, okay, this is where you go. You just search it up on YouTube and there it is. And it's funny because you kind of tackled 2 birds with 1 stone there. Obviously, you talked about what we are. You also talked about who we are. And then you talked about where people can find us. And again, YouTube, Roku, Obviously, anywhere you listen to a podcast, you can find this show. But in terms of accessibility, right, and just being able to hop on and watch, that's the other thing about this platform. And I know I'm supposed to be, kind of interviewing you about this. The other thing is you don't have to spend big money to watch what we have. It's not just accessibility. It's not just convenience, and all that other stuff. It's also the fact that you're not dropping $1 billion. That's, when you talk about some of the places where I broadcast sports, thanks for radio. Peter, they said that about me forever. It remains today. Lower leagues coverage. Appreciate that, Jimmy. Peter, yes, correct, Jim. Look at these guys having a dialogue in the comment section. What's going on? Okay. Anyways, we got to get that caller feature on so people just call in and talk.
We can do it, man. It can happen.
But when you talk about some of these other companies, especially when it just comes to lower level colleges, each and every single person that watches the broadcast, even the broadcaster himself, if he wants to just go back and watch his own game film, has to spend money on a membership, a yearly membership, a monthly membership. Now we have different options and different stuff you can pay for in order to, not necessarily with the viewing experience, but if whatever it is on our platform you want to consume, all the way from, again, youth leagues, all the way up to lower professional leagues and high school, if you know someone or you like a team or whatever it is, or you just want to consume soccer content or keep up with whatever league you're following, you could do that for free on our platform. Like there's nothing that you have to spend money on in terms of the viewing experience. So the other thing is, financially speaking, we make it really convenient on the people that watch. We're not demanding that you spend extra money on a membership or anything else like that. So that's something else that's really big. But you talked about when people can watch and consume. And the one thing about our channel that I think is really interesting is it is 24/7. It's constantly going. It's constant. There's constantly stuff up and new stuff up. I also think that's really interesting too. And I want to get your opinion on that. The fact that this is really constantly going. It feels like 24/7. There's something that can be consumed on our channel. It's 24/7.
Yeah, right now on our Roku, I'm looking to find a way to make it where like we can do basically a live feed on YouTube. It's just 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The problem with that is just from an indexing standpoint on YouTube. Right. So that would be the only problem with YouTube. But on Roku, yes, on our Roku channel, which is the National Soccer Network I believe it's .live. I apologize because I don't actually go to that way a lot, so I want to make sure I say it properly, so that way if you're tuning in, you go to nationalsoccernetwork.tv. I apologize, nationalsoccernetwork.tv on Roku. You can just type that in on a URL on your computer, and that will take you to our live Roku channel. And right now we have MASL games. A lot of our reruns of this are playing right now in our 24-hour a day, 7-day a week play out. I go through that once a week and kind of play with the times and things like that. Right now, we're just taking the full game, so no matter how we record everything, it's playing in there. So as we go through the play out process and start to staff up, that will be someone's job will be to make sure the commercials are inserted properly, and we'll update things and cut them properly. But that just kind of gives you like an idea of kind of how that works. But yeah, we have a live 24-hour day, 7-day a week platform on Roku. We are still pushing all of our on-demand content, into the Roku space, so that you can go in there and check out by league or by team. That's just it's a growing process, and it just takes a lot of man hours.
I guess the last part of what we're talking about, and really just trying to break down exactly what the National Soccer Network is for those people out there that want a better understanding of not just who we are, but what it is that we're doing and what it is that we're trying to accomplish here. Because there's a lot of lofty goals with what we're doing and where we are, and really putting it all together and being grassroots. And you know about it, JT. I mean, it's backbreaking work. Early mornings, late nights. I mean, I'm sure you're probably losing your cookies some days with the amount of stuff you have to do just to try and grow this thing. But I think it is genuine what we're trying to accomplish here. But the last part of this is, why do it? And you talked about, yes, the passion, and obviously soccer runs through your veins. The other side of it, obviously, is the business too. There's a lot of money to be made in the broadcasting realm. And the other thing is, soccer's pretty high in demand too. You wouldn't think so, but there's a lot of other sports in America that are pretty saturated when it comes to media and media talent and all this other stuff. Soccer's always looking for new blood. And so I think that's something that's always been really inviting. But the question at the end of the day, okay, you got this big soccer network. You're covering games across the country. You also got your own live show, and you want to add more stuff, and it's continuing to grow every single day into this big thing that you want it to be to compete with some of the other major networks. All that's fine and dandy, but at its very core, why do you do it?
Well, it's a good question. Growing up, playing soccer, I there's nothing more that excited me than seeing my name in a paper. Right? I mean, I'm thinking about high school and thinking about what I did at the varsity level and seeing, the chance to be in the local paper. And I don't want that to come off as some kind of conceited thing. I just
No, every kid
remember
loves
that
that.
it was really cool to see your picture, in the Oakland Press, or I think I was in the Royal Oak Tribune, with the all area team, and seeing your picture and your name on there, right? My dad would take videos, or we had people who took videos of us, so you can see some videos of the day, when you were playing. I don't do this. I mean, I do it because I love it. But the real reason I do this is because I say this a lot. We shine a light on the game, a light that deserves to be on the game, right? And right now there is plenty of light, and not just really in this room there's a lot of light, but I mean there's a lot of light that is covering the highest levels in this country, right? There, I mean,
Right.
MLS. U.S. men's national team, women's national team, the NWSL, those leagues get a ton of exposure. Now, is it the same exposure as that of the NFL? Of course not, because it's not the number one sport in the world. I mean, in the country.
And think
I
about the
get
kids
that.
next to him
Yeah,
at school too.
yeah.
If they're
Yeah,
playing football or whatever.
yeah. So for me, I'm like, well, why can't the soccer players have the exact same thing that the football players get?
Mm-hmm.
Let's just create that for them.
Mm-hmm.
There is no other live ranking show in the nation, for that matter, from what I know, like we do here in Michigan. Now, full disclosure, things are changing. So for us, there will be a nationwide type thing, but nobody else has been doing it. So we've been doing it now for the last 3 years, right? So the reason I do it is because I want the young kids out there, the parents, the grandmothers, the fathers, and everybody in between to have access to see their kid in a way that's never been done before. Yeah, you can go watch a game because mom and dad put it up on YouTube. It's not live. Maybe it's pre-recorded. You can go watch a VO camera, maybe live. But what is it missing? It's missing what we do, which is we bring all this next level of emotion to the game. We did these games yesterday where we had, Noah and Giovanni doing games in Mesa, Arizona here in our studios. And for watching those two grow, like that too, right? I'm not a coach anymore, but I still am a coach, right? And to be fair, I don't have the background of broadcasting like somebody else. So watching these kids play soccer, and then watching like the likes of Giovanni, Dan, and Noah, and everybody else that works for us in some capacity, watching them grow in front of you is pretty cool. Because me and you, we've talked about this before. We've talked about the commentators, like, man, I just, because the one thing I say when they walk in this room, I don't care if it's your first day of a broadcast or if it's your 3,000th day as a broadcaster. When you walk in this room for our network, take the personality out of it for a second. When someone is shooting at the net and there's a chance that ball is going to go in, you need to uncork.
Punch that thing.
You need to go as loud and as proud as you possibly can.
Slap that thing.
This is not basketball where there's 100 points scored in a game.
Yep.
Unless, of course, it's MASL. Maybe there's 30 goals scored in a game. That's
Right.
possible.
Right.
But aside from that, these games aren't going to have 100 goals scored in them. So you don't need to go, well, there's another one. No, you need to let that. No, that it goes in the back of the net. It's like, oh my God, a goal just went in. Like you need to uncork, and that is something that the new broadcaster, to be fair, does not feel comfortable doing. It's just it's a comfort level thing. So, like, I remember a few weeks back, and I'm sure, I mean, and again, Noah probably has no problem with it. I remember we were doing a game. It was a Sunday. Noah, I'm in the other room. We'd ordered pizza for everybody. We had been doing multiple games this day, and Noah's in the studio. I'm out here, and you can hear shot, and Noah has this way about him when he's doing a game. It's almost like it kind of squeaks a little bit, kind of like towards, like, it kind of, and his voice gets a little softer, right? And as he's trying to exert like some of that power from his voice. And he's to be fair, I think he's doing it on purpose because he's trying, because he's in this room. We're not out at the field, so there's probably some level of like, I don't want anyone to hear me. I don't want to get too loud, right? And I walk in, I go, dude, I'm not going to feed you if you don't go in there and uncork like right now. Like you're not going to have any pizza. I'm not going to feed you if you don't get any pizza. Yeah.
Right.
And sure as shit, he did it like the next time, and it was great. And you even sent me a message yesterday saying, man, he is sounding so good right now, and he's just gotten so much more comfortable calling these games, and you can just see it, you can feel it, and I think the viewer at home is starting to love it.
Yeah, and I mean, he's young too, and I worked with him actually the other day. He came and covered a game with me, and I was just talking to him about some of the stuff that's obviously helped me and some advice throughout the years. And when you inflect, try to use the air in your lungs to punch out as opposed to punching up, because that's something that I've also had to learn in my career, because I used to go up too and my voice used to squeak and everything else like that. And that's something you have to expect from someone who's brand new to this, because it's no different than playing an instrument or doing anything else that's performance based. Like there is a level of polish that comes with just doing it over time. So that's the other thing. No, I listen, I agree with you. And to be fair, I understand why the discrepancy in the gap, the Grand Canyon, if you will, between sports coverage when it comes to the main sports. You talk about football and maybe basketball and everything else, especially when it comes to high school or any of the other levels in the US. And the truth is we always want to talk about how the sport is growing, and it certainly has on the women's side. I mean, the United States, we talked about how good they've been on the national level, and obviously the men's team is getting better and younger and more athletic, and we're getting more trainers, and the sport is growing itself. But you can only say that so much before you actually have to like prove it. And so I think for us going out and covering and just giving this level of exposure to these kids, I remember going to the state championship Saturday, this last year for men's high school soccer, and seeing the outpour of the support and the people showing up for that one weekend. It's like, could you imagine if that was like every game for these kids? If the stands were somewhat packed out the way a Friday night would be for the football game. I mean, that I'm sure that has to give them so much energy and happiness to see the level of coverage and the interviewing and being there and just putting their face on, a pedestal, because they're just as much athletes as any other sport at that school. It's just the fact that we're handicapped because we're in the United States, and there's this mentality. And again, it's switching, it's changing slowly but surely. But there's this mentality of just no one really cares about soccer, which I think isn't right. I think there's a reason why it's the world's most popular game. And I think that these athletes deserve a level of coverage. And I remember going to state championships. I played football, and this, and we went to state titles. I remember trying to find the shot, intentionally going out of my way to stand by the important people that I knew that production crew was going to be cutting to during the course of the game. And I think I watched it back, and I think like 3-4 times I saw myself in the shot. I never ended up playing. This was my sophomore year. But that alone was enough to make me be like, wow, that's freaking cool. So if we can provide that to these soccer kids who oftentimes don't get the same treatment, don't get the same attention, don't get the same turnout, don't get any of that other stuff, I think we're accomplishing what we want to do. And more importantly, I think people really appreciate and love what we do. So anything else you wanted to add about the company, or anything else you want people to know?
One thing, I say this a lot, and we're actually working on a number of videos right now for the onboarding because we're hiring 300 people nationwide. And we've already had, 60 or so interviews. We got 40 more to go this next next week and a half or so. Is that when you come and work for a company like Premier Media Group and the National Soccer Network, while you're working for a company, whether that be in a W-2 environment, employee or freelancer role, you're part of a family. We're extending you an offer to be part of this family. And for me, what that means is that we take care of family, right? So, and that doesn't mean that we like are allowing ourselves to get taken advantage of and vice versa, right? Because that's not a healthy family, right? There are boundaries in a healthy family, and we're trying to be a healthy family here in regards to what we do here. And what that means is that we will be upfront with you. We will communicate with you. You will understand what is expected of you. There might be some gaps in there. Of course there will be, because of course we're busy, we're growing, and all that kind of stuff. But culturally, people will all be accepted, right? We have varying degrees of experience from beginning to the most experienced people that you'll ever come across in what we do. And as a part of this family, we will take care of you. If you call me on a Friday morning and say, hey, something's not right with my paycheck, we will make it right immediately, right? And I'm a firm believer that if you take care of the people that work for you, they will take care of you. That's what I believe in.
Yep.
So if you want to work for a company that is going to believe that, then we're the company for you. And then on the flip side of that, we don't want people that are just yes people. Like, I don't need someone that says yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, yes ma'am. I don't need that. What I need is, if you're going to say yes to something, that you honor what you say you're going to do. That you're going to follow through on the commitment. If you can't do it, don't do it. But if you say yes, then you should honor what you said. And that's what I mean. So it's like, okay, you accept a role to go do a game. Don't turn that back because another role was better. The second you say yes, it's yours. And, loyalty is something that people, I think, throw around a lot. Not a lot in the sense that it's like I think it throws as negative. Loyalty is a good thing. It is not a bad thing. I am loyal to my wife. I am loyal to my children. I am loyal to the people that work for me and work with us and work for us. And I'm not expecting someone to be loyal, only to us. But when you decide that you're going to do something with us and for us, that loyalty has to be there. And that is what we look for here at the National Soccer Network. And that's what we're looking for, in all aspects of the people that work for us. And if you want to be part of something like that, come join us because we're hiring massively. My wife is so busy with interviews. She's like, John, this is nuts. She worked in a restaurant. You'd think that, she said, I never got this many applications ever. So I guess that's a good thing.
I second that. I definitely second everything that you just said. And you guys have taken great care of me. And so therefore, I've responded by putting my all in and just trying to do everything I can to help you guys grow this. And it's nice to get in on the ground floor. I will say that. So just a little shout out to those who are looking to jump on the bandwagon. We're cooking.
So if you want to learn more about the National Soccer Network, go to nationalsoccernetwork.com and check out all of our news, because we talked about the streaming aspect of this, but we have a whole website that's dedicated to strictly news. And you can get all your soccer news here nationwide as we continue to hire freelance writers. That will only continue to explode. But to learn more about that, nationalsoccernetwork.com. Again, you're watching the show on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Roku. And you can also listen to this every single day on Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify. That will wrap up episode number 12 here on this 21st day of January, a very cold and blistery one here in the state of Michigan. Stick around. We've got a U15 boys matchup coming around in Mesa, Arizona, as Club Ohio is taking on the Wizard Oak Brook Cadence FC. Wizard Oak Brook FC out of Oak Brook, Illinois. That game kicking off at 11 o'clock Eastern right here on the National Soccer Network. But Nathan Wangler, man, it was a pleasure speaking with you tomorrow. It's my turn to ask you some questions. So we're going to do that tomorrow right here live on Inside the Game. Either way, have a great rest of your Tuesday. So long, everybody, right here from the National Soccer Network.